I know I haven't been following this drama very closely, but I wanted to give everyone an update on the soap opera that is college football conference realignment expansion. What's going on with the Pac 12? And I have to say, it does not look good. So it says Apple has emerged as a potential landing spot for the Pac 12 college football TV rights per the New York Post. The idea that you would have an entire conference at least 50% streaming. Like, I think the deal is I heard a rumor that the Pac 12 might go 100% fully stream only. You think Washington and Oregon want that with how bad streaming is in terms of overall viewership? I mean, that would be a death nail to the conference. And really, you take a look at this new article we've got up. It says, what is the Pac-12 actually selling? Ratings without USC, UCLA explain league's struggle to land a rights deal. And the problem for the Pac-12, as we'll go over this article by CBS Sports, is mainly that everyone else is already taken. I mean, you've got Fox, who is completely in bed with the Big Ten. You have ESPN, who's in bed with the SEC and the ACC. And you have even NBC now, who has the 7:30 primetime, Big Ten game. So all the major networks have already invested so much money into these other conferences. It's very hard to see where the Pac-12 fits into this. I also do understand that a lot of people are saying, well, maybe, CBS has some incentive to make this a negative Pac-12 article. But honestly, I mean, we'll go through some of the comments. I think a lot of that is cope. I mean, the Pac-12 is just not selling much. And again, a lot of these major players that would be open to big time deals, and media rights negotiations, they're already in bed and giving tons of money to the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12 to a lesser extent. So it's going to be very hard for the Pac-12. Now, this is just an overall chart showing the viewership without UCLA or USC included. And when you take a look at the departure of USC and UCLA for the Pac-12, especially in terms of football, it's really USC that is going to sting. The problem, USC is finally coming back with Lincoln Riley, with Caleb Williams, with that offense. It says Oregon played in the Pac-12's 3 highest rated games overall without USC and UCLA across the last 2 seasons. And the viewership over the past 2 years, if you take out USC and UCLA, is less than 5 million. That was their top game. It was Washington versus Oregon, and then Washington versus Oregon again, Oregon versus Oregon State, the rivalry, Stanford versus Cal in 2021, which is kind of surprising. But again, these are not including USC and UCLA games. And then Oregon, Washington in 2021 as well. So I guess Oregon and Washington faced each other 3 times in the past 2 years. Is that what that's saying? But either way, guys, this is just not a good look for the Pac-12. It later says when USC and UCLA left, the Pac-12 was stripped of 23 conference games involving those teams that were among the top 20 most watched on a weekly basis over the past 2 seasons. It represented 20% of their conference inventory, so they lost a ton, similar to the Big 12 losing Texas and Oklahoma, but at least they were able to rebound and pick off 4 American schools, while the Pac-12 championship game last year was the highest rated such contest in 11 years. That's actually impressive for the Pac-12. I did not realize that. It did include USC playing Utah, so obviously USC leaving, but still, that game was the highest rated Pac-12 championship in 11 years. That's good. 15 of the Big Ten conference games in 2022 were rated higher than the 2022 Civil War, which was third on the list. Ohio State by itself appeared in 6 games in 2022, rated higher than the Civil War. So that just goes to show you. And then this is just another viewership graph that to me signifies it's really a big 2 in college football. I mean, it pretty much always was in terms of viewership, but now with the realignment, now with the Big Ten getting more schools, now with the SEC getting more schools, It's those two and then everyone else. I mean, you've got Ohio State, Michigan, 17 million viewers. Tennessee, Georgia at 13 million, and then really the ACC, Big 12, Pac-12, all bundled together in between 3 and 5 million viewers. I think that's like the best rivalry game or something like that. And then these are just some ongoing questions for the Pac-12. When will the Pac-12 sign a new media rights deal? Something will likely be done in the first quarter. So that means by the end of March, they will have a new deal, or at least they should. If a deal isn't announced by Final Four weekend around April 1st, the concern should increase. And then you do have the Washington State president quoted in the San Jose Mercury News saying mid-March is when we should get some legitimate news on the Pac-12's overall deal. Why hasn't a deal been signed yet? This basically says that the Pac-12 got some unfortunate luck in terms of Disney having a lot of layoffs, and ESPN may not be willing to pay as much for the overall Pac-12 rights in a package. Maybe that they waited too long, that the Pac-12 commissioner waited too long. And then it says it could be the Pac-12 is in this position because there just isn't much interest right now. Fox and ESPN combined to spend billions to wrap up the Big Ten and the Big 12. CBS and Turner are reportedly not interested in the Pac-12. So it's like everyone is already taken. Every one of the big boys is already spending a bunch of money. And then it says how much of the Pac-12's deal will be streaming. And this is really the big news here. It is believed that significantly more, oh my God, significantly more than 50% of the Pac-12 games will be streaming. What does that mean? Does that mean 75% of their games are going to be streaming exclusively? As CBS Sports previously reported. So I guess they reported this before. I just haven't been caught up on the news. That would be unprecedented for a major conference. I mean, yeah, it would be unprecedented, but we also haven't had this kind of a streaming reach until very recently. It previously thought ESPN would pick up Pac-12 games for the fourth window, which would make sense. That would make sense. With Amazon potentially acquiring the rest, suddenly Apple Plus is a possibility for the Pac-12 in what could be an all-streaming deal. There is no shot that Oregon and Washington would want an all-streaming exclusive deal. That would kill all of their ratings and make them irrelevant, would it not? It says, best guessed. Indeed, only an educated guess. The Pac-12 will get a deal that pays schools $25 million annually. The current 12-year Pac-12 deal that expires next year averages right around $21 million per year. The length of the active deal made by former Commissioner Larry Scott is an easy target as the league got lapped by the other conferences. So $25 million, is that seriously what they're down to? I know people are saying this is an anti-Pac-12 type article, but if that is seriously the guesstimation by the experts, because the last time I heard it was $36 million for the Pac-12. If it's down to 25, I mean, my goodness. And then it later speculates on what if the Pac-12 goes down, who gets the teams. It says the Big Ten would likely need a streamer to be interested in acquiring rights to the additional games that would get added to the conference schedule. Getting up to 4 of the Pac-12 teams playing in the Big Ten would look a heck of a lot better than taking the entire Pac-12 now. Streaming or no streaming, membership in the Big Ten is life at the top, even if it means taking something less than $75 million full. If they're only getting $25 million from the Pac-12, if that report is correct, you're going to want to run to the Big Ten. Run. Any further expansion is unlikely to go further than the Big 12 and or Pac-12, with interest certainly needed for a streamer. The Big 12 has at least some interest in the Pac-12's 4 corner schools: Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. CBS Sports reported last week what might happen if the Pac-12 doesn't survive. And I believe what they were saying was you would get the 4 schools going to the Big 12. You would get Washington and Oregon going to the Big 10, possibly with another streaming service to facilitate adding more games to the schedule. And then you would get possibly a merger of the Mountain West and the remaining Pac-12 schools like Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, and Stanford if Cal and Stanford didn't go to the Big 10. So that is kind of where we are right now. There are some comments from the article saying CBS is, hating on the Pac-12, and, someone saying that San Diego State, because San Diego State gets some of the strongest ratings on the CBS network, that they're making these negative articles because the Pac-12 is trying to poach San Diego State. I really think that's just crazy cope. I mean, this does not look good for the Pac-12. Just as a neutral observer, I'm more of like a Big Ten fan, so it really doesn't matter what happens to the Pac-12. I mean, obviously the Big Ten is going to be fine either way. I know there's a lot of infighting right now between Pac-12 fans and the Big 12 and stuff like that. So, but yeah, a lot of this just seems like cope. I mean, it does not look good for the Pac-12. The idea that they would go exclusively to streaming would be terrible for their overall viewership. It would be horrible for the bigger brands in the conference like Washington and Oregon. Washington and Oregon, if this is seriously true, they will be out at the first moment's notice. $25 million per year, and we're going to put you on Apple Stream. I mean, my goodness, this just does not sound sustainable for a Power 5 conference, in my opinion. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Wake up, babe, it's your daily Pac-12 won't survive article. Yeah, we went through that in the summer. Oh my God. We were getting 5 of those a day in the summer. But yeah, people got to capitalize off of the news, off of the clicks and things like that. I mean, obviously, I made like 10 videos a day in the summer just racking in money talking about nothing. So I'm kind of a hypocrite here, let's be honest. But yeah, it's more like every 6 to 8 hours. Is it still that bad? Because this is like the first one I've seen recently. But yeah, either way, there are certain writers, I'm sure, that are against the Pac-12. But even then, I mean, these people have to realize it's just not sustainable. $25 million per year going to Apple TV. You're going to be so irrelevant. Any one of those teams is going to try and get out of that conference at moment's notice. Now, maybe that's an inaccurate report. Maybe they get more money. And I will say, if you just look pound for pound at the Pac-12 and at the Big 12, with the Big 12 losing Texas and Oklahoma, the fact that Pac-12 does have Oregon and Washington and they get those ratings, those might be 2 of the more powerful teams when you just look at the 2 conferences side by side. And if you're the Pac-12, you can try and argue that and leverage that. But again, it seems like the Pac-12 waited too long here to where you've got ESPN tied up tons of money already in 3 Power 5 conferences, and you've got NBC now doing this deal with the Big Ten, the 7:30 primetime game. You've got Fox in bed with the Big Ten. It's ridiculous how much money they're spending on them. And then you also do have CBS doing the 3:30 deal now with the Big Ten as well. They're going to be switching from the SEC to the Big Ten. So, seems like all the big players are off the market. Seems like especially ESPN, Disney, cutting the jobs. They don't have the money to facilitate buying 50% of the Pac-12, media rights to possibly add that 4th window at 10 o'clock, which previously we speculated they would do. So, guys, we will see what happens on this whole situation. We'll see if when the Pac-12 works out their deal, what the numbers actually look like. The speculation right now, that deal will happen sometime in the middle of March. But, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.